All right, and we're live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session of HBCU to Startup. We are talking to Pandora today. So we have the Senior Diversity Managers from Pandora, Lisa and Marvin. And then I'm just going to ask briefly if you could just introduce yourself, starting with Lisa.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Lee, and I lead diversity initiatives at Pandora. I have been there for about 2 years. And before that, I was at Facebook for a number of years as well, managing a couple of other non-diversity related things, which we can go into later on. But very happy to be here.
Welcome. And then Marvin, I'm a little excited and nervous for your introduction after reading your bio that you sent over.
Yeah, Marvin has a lot to say. We can just give the rest of the session over to him.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get into some of that stuff. But my name is Marvin Stickel. I work really closely with Lisa Lee over here at Pandora. And I also work on diversity initiatives. My background is more in staffing. I'm a new person at Pandora, a new panda, as we refer to it internally. And about 6 months in, my background is I came from Google for a number of years before this, but very excited to be here, excited to talk diversity any and all the time.
Awesome. All right, and so for those who are watching, and if you're new to the Hangouts, there are two ways that you can ask questions. One is if you're on the Hangout interface, there is a 9 square icon at the top of your screen. Click on that. It'll open up. There's a box that says Q&A. Click on that, and then you can submit a question. And if you're watching through the YouTube link, if you tweet at HBCU to Startup, you're able to ask questions. So let's talk about Pandora. I don't think Pandora needs an introduction itself. Most people, well, I think most people are familiar with Pandora. But if you had to explain it to my grandmother, can you tell me what is Pandora and what do you guys do?
Pandora, grandmothers are pretty hip nowadays. My parents are like on all of the social media. My dad just created an Instagram account without knowing. So your grandmother might be hipper than you think.
Yeah, she might be watching right now, actually.
She might be. So what I would say is Pandora is a service that allows you to listen to all of the music that you love in a way that is truly effortless. You can just use a couple of the songs or singers or bands that you're really into and start a station, and it functions like a radio station, and it's personalized just for you. So my station is not going to be the same as Marvin's station, even if both of us are listening to Maxwell. So that's what I would say. And it's free, and it's awesome.
It is pretty awesome.
I don't know, Marvin, anything you would add to that?
That's a great sell. If I didn't have Pandora, I'd want to get it right now. Yeah, it's a really cool service. The platform itself is really based on personalization, to Lisa's point, right? On the technical side, this is kind of ugly, but there's machine learning properties that go into your behavior and predictive modeling and all that kind of cool stuff. So every station you listen to is really custom built for you. So yeah, cool product, and we love it.
Cool. All right. So again, for those who are watching, there is a way through the interface to ask a question. 9 square icon up top. Click on that. Then click on Q&A, and then you're able to submit a question. And this is a community-driven Q&A, so anytime your questions pop up, I will ask them. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and tweet HBCU to Startup and ask your questions. So, question, guys. You guys are diversity managers. What does that mean, and what does a diversity manager do?
Sure. So technically, I'm a diversity manager.
Oh, okay.
Marvin works on our sourcing team and partners with me really closely on some of the diversity sourcing and recruiting initiatives that we have. So to be precise, well, okay, so I have two answers for what I do. And on the days where I haven't really eaten and I'm like kind of hangry, what I say is that essentially my job is to just help people become better people. that's it, like at the end of the day. Um, and it's helping people to develop a new sense of curiosity, empathy, and just understanding for people who might have different backgrounds and perspectives from you, and really appreciate those things and embrace those things. On the days where I am full and I'm happy, I'll say that my job is to really enable Pandora to really reflect the music that we have on our platform, which is, as we all know, the power of music comes from its essence of diversity. So my job is to help our company reflect our musicians and artists as well as our listeners. So what I do, I think, can be broken down into three different buckets. One is really just around recruiting and retention. So how do we increase the overall representation of underrepresented voices within tech? The second bucket is how do we be a thought leader and an actual leader out in the industry, and also be, a really valuable partner to our community, and know that we are a part of this community, that we live in an ecosystem, we function in an ecosystem, and we cannot be a great business if we are not, being good neighbors. And the third bucket is really just around this idea of how do we, reflect these people and voices in everything that we do. So the continuation of embedding diversity values into every aspect of our business objectives. So, it sounds a little bit ambiguous and nebulous, but what I would say is just, helping people to become better people, so that, all of us are really appreciating what we all have to bring to the table, and know that, what I bring to the table is going to look very different from what Marvin is bringing to the table, and that's fantastic. That is what we want.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, only because I get this often, add to what you're not. You're not an inside hookup for minorities.
What am I not? Well, actually, what am I not? Okay. Oh, that's actually a good one. I am not here to fill any quotas. Mm-hmm. And I am not here to answer, honestly, what I find to be really offensive questions. So, there are, people do say, like, there are no dumb questions, like every question is okay. And for me, it's like, actually, sometimes there's a line there, and like when people say things, like, I really want them to think about them. I mean, a classic example is around this idea of, like, well, we really value diversity, but we don't want to lower our bar. And, I say that here because I know it's a safe space to say that. But normally, I don't want to hear that sentence coming out of anybody's mouth. I just find it so insulting and offensive. So I am not the person who is going to answer questions like that, because I don't want to give power to it. What else am I not? Marvin, I'm not a great dancer. I don't entertain. But I am not, the hookup. Marvin is, though.
All right, so let's jump in. We have a couple of questions that just came in. I want to jump into what opportunities are currently available at Pandora. What's been circulated through my network is this dream job alert in terms of, I don't know, you probably get this question about the hip hop analysts. So I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that, and then also other opportunities that are at Pandora.
Yeah, Marvin, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll jump in. And just to kind of give this flip side of Lisa's coin from earlier, my background is more in staffing, right? So I'm a recruiter by trade. And my diversity sort of passion comes in really wanting to affect the pipeline, right? Affecting candidate pipeline and our candidate pool, and make sure that it reflects, what America looks like, and eventually what we look like as a world. So that's a huge part of my initiative here at Pandora, working closely with Lisa. In regards to positions, man, the site is really good, and they update it all the time. Pandora.com/careers. Take a look, let us know what you think. Happy to answer any of those questions. And to Lisa's point, I work in staffing, right? I'm a recruiter. So if you want to reach out to me directly to talk about any of these things in more detail, or I can get you connected to the right person internally, I'm happy to do so. In regards to the hip hop analyst, a role that I hear about a lot, a role that I'm interested in, to be honest with you. I actually tweeted that the other day. I was like, I wonder if I'm doing the right job, because that sounds like a really fun job. The hip hop analyst job is so again, we have all these technical roles which are incredible, but we have this thing called the Music Genome Project. Definitely take a look at that. I'm sure Lisa could talk through some of that also at a high level. But we curate all of these songs, every single artist, every song, every genre. We actually go through all kinds of characterizations, and we categorize based on vocal quality, amount of bass, you name it. There's all these different things that we go through, and it's a human being that does it. And they do it for every single genre, including hip hop. So someone with a great ear for hip hop. Usually we hire, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, industry professionals, people that are musicians by trade, right? Just because your ear has to be a very specific kind of way.
Yeah, so what people don't know is that every single song that is in our library, and we have a lot of them, every single one of them has been analyzed by a human being. And then, of course, we have our algorithms and machine learning that kicks into play. But every single song is actually heard by a person, and we rate it and put different kind of music genes towards the song, and then put it in our library. So what we typically look for are folks who basically have just lived music their entire lives. I think some of our music analysts themselves have gotten a degree in music. They're teaching. They also play music themselves. Some are classically trained. Some have been, working at local radio stations for a long time, have on-air personalities, have been running radio stations, are DJs, etc., and so on. So we do try to find people who are at least familiar with some type of music theory, because they need to be very, very specific in the way that they listen to music, and are able to say, God, this is where I wish I continued playing piano, because I just gave that up. But to be able to say, like, okay, the beat here is like 3/4 as opposed to 4/4, or there are like high elements of 808 here, and et cetera, and so on. So not just people who are like, I love music and I want to be, listening to music and getting paid, but actually folks who can listen to the music as objectively as possible and pick out, all the instruments, the style, and all of that. So it does seem like a dream job. You did get paid to listen to rap music and hip hop music. That is true. And a lot of the folks who work on our music analyst teams are still working musicians. So they come in, they analyze their music, and then they go and continue, teaching and performing.
Cool. And then so now let's talk about, I'm still answering questions. Kevin has some good questions that he's posting here. Working for Pandora, what qualities and skills are you looking at in a candidate? So I'm sure you receive a lot of resumes, Marvin. What are some of the things that stand out once you receive a resume?
Yeah, well, a lot of that is contingent on the role, right? So we're really good about having some specific must-haves versus nice-to-haves versus love-to-haves, right? So we're really good about breaking those down. But in general, I think that our culture, it's a cool culture, right? It's people who enjoy music for the most part, who want to apply their technical wares to a cool musical product. People that can get along. It's a collaborative environment. A lot of these things don't necessarily fly off of a resume. That's why it's important to talk to somebody in this organization and really get a sense of the role, and for us to be able to get a sense of you also. I'm not a huge fan of the term culture fit. Again, that's a conversation for a different time. But we do have the Silicon Valley in general, right? Is a bring yourself to work culture. So authentic people, genuine people who have a good understanding based on whatever the job requisition is, plus, right, sort of being your own genuine, cool self, I think is the right recipe for getting a job here at Penn.
Yeah, and can I add to that too, to just say, yes, like I think we are living a time when we want people to be as authentic as possible, but that doesn't mean that, you should show up and not be prepared. Like real talk, like by bringing your full selves to work, it does not mean like you show up at your interview looking like a mess, because that's not going to get you the job, right? So it means like, if you want this job, like be really prepared about, what you know about Pandora. Like have a clear, concise answer for why it is that you want this job, for why you want to work at Pandora. You want to come across like you've thought about this, that you're not just applying to this job because it's cool and you love music. I mean, yes, all of those things, and we do really appreciate like a music geek. I don't play any instruments, but I do, really embrace music. But spend some time thinking about your story and what is compelling about your story, and know that you only have like 5 minutes to be able to tell it. So those are some of the recommendations that I would give to people as you think about applying any job, really. But to what Marvin said about our culture of collaboration and humility. I mean, some of the nicest and the best people that I've worked with are at Pandora right now. But it's the same thing. Like if I were to ask you how it is that you've demonstrated collaboration in the past, have a great answer for me. If I say, how have you demonstrated humility and kindness? Have a great answer. So all this comes down to is do your homework, don't show up unprepared, and you gotta be on top of it.
Can I make one last point just on the be prepared thing? I'm sorry about that before you move on, just because I love that. And it's advice I feel like I've been giving young people especially a lot recently. 2016 is a really cool opportunity where, because of LinkedIn and other social media outlets, you can find someone that's doing the job you want and touch that person, right?
Like, yep.
You can really ask,
right away.
Yeah, ask this person, hey, what did you do to get where you're at? How should I prepare for this interview? The mentor thing is so important. We should all be looking for mentors all the time, looking to increase our skill sets, not just based on what we're doing in the classroom, but also just talking to folks that are doing things that we want to do. And we can touch those folks. Everyone's touchable now. And for the most part, especially in tech, people love to hear from young people, and they can't wait to get back to you and share their experiences, share their prep tips and tricks, all of those kinds of things. So I can't encourage that enough. Go out there, find someone that's doing what you want to do, drop them a line, and learn about the role.
That's a good point. Especially social media makes everyone pretty much accessible as long as they're on social media. I often tell people to cyberstalk people on Twitter.
Yeah, that's a great way. I actually met a guy the other night, and he applied to Facebook, I think, like 4 or 5 times, and then eventually he got the job because people were just like, wow, you are persistent. And I actually worked with a guy too who I think interviewed for at least 3 or 4 times before he got the job. I mean, so here's the thing. Here's what I was saying. I tell people to follow up with me all the time, and people don't. And I'm, at this point, I'm just used to it. I'm like, all right, well, if I already gave you my card or I gave you my email and I don't hear from you, then I'm not going to hunt you down. Like, I don't even know where you are, So if somebody says, connect with me, take them seriously, like, that's your in, like, get in on it. I get so many inbound requests from, like, all types of people, but the one group of people that I always make time for are exactly the people that Marvin says. Like, I will spend 15 minutes with you on the phone, or 30 minutes with you on the phone, to talk to you about what I did to get here. So there's that. And also, like, don't take no for an answer. If you write an email one time and I don't get back to you, it's not because I hate you. It's just because I have 150 other emails to look at. So mark it in your calendar. Follow up with me in 3 weeks, and keep following up with me until I get back to you. And trust me, like, I do not take it I will not be like, wow, this person is so freaking annoying. Like, if anything, I'd be like, this person is awesome, and they know what they want.
Right.
It's pretty cool. So we talked a little bit about culture, and it's actually a good question about culture. Is there a dichotomy of cultures at Pandora between the artists and the engineers?
Want to take that?
I think the company, I think she said, is there a difference between the different cultures, like, of people at Pandora within the different teams? So, I mean, I think, yeah, absolutely. Like, anytime a company gets, I think, bigger than, like 50 people, subcultures start to create, right? And, like, what is culture? Culture is a collective group of actions. Like, if we were to really break it down and look at what that means. So, the culture of, like, sales is going to be very different from engineering, and it's going to be different from, the artist relationships team. Like, I think each team has its own kind of vibe. But, what we do emphasize as a company is this overarching umbrella of, like, we're going to be collaborative, we're going to be respectful, we are going to be kind, and those are some of the anchors, I think, within the larger Pandora culture. But you are going to get groups louder than us. Our team is super loud, and we play music at 4 o'clock, and we will maybe have a beer at work sometimes. But I don't know. What do you think, Marvin?
No, you nailed it. It's just sort of the nature of the beast, right? I think that if there's any overarching culture, it always comes back to music. We all sort of share that love. But I mean, engineering at any company is going to be different than sales at any company, right? Really, the one tie that binds is probably music. We love. It's a great thing. It's something that really ties our culture together.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
it also varies by location too. Like, we have our office here in Oakland, we have New York, we have Chicago, Santa Monica. I mean, everybody knows people in LA are very different from people in Chicago sometimes. Like, so there are different, definitely different cultures and all of that within, our company, which is now, I think, 2,500 people.
And so this kind of relates to culture as well. How does the recent change of the CEO impact the morale at Pandora?
Marvin, you want to take that one? You want me to take
it?
Yeah,
I think we probably should both answer this because we may have different perspectives. But I've only seen an outspring of positive energy all around campus. People seem to be really, really sort of juiced about the move. I think that and this is all sort of public information, but it comes from a place of we're in a big evolution period, and we're looking to move the company forward, and we're doing these really great things, and looking at globalization and all the mergers and acquisitions we've done recently. This is the right person to be leading our company at this moment, and it seems to me, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, across the board, everyone's bought in, which is a great place to be. The energy is really, really good.
Yeah, we're super stoked. I mean, let's see. So I've been at the company for close to 2 years now, and when I joined, Tim was not the CEO. I think he was running the company when it was much smaller. But I've had personally and professionally different opportunities to interact with him, and the way that he is able to paint the picture of kind of our future roadmap and connect dots in terms of everything that we're working on, and really get people, excited about, what Pandora is working on is, like, out of this world. Like, once you talk to him, you just, like, get so pumped about, like, the future of music. And he comes from a musician background. Like, he is a trained and working musician, award-winning at that too. And his whole vision is to be able to build a product that allows a middle class of musicians that one day you'll be able to tell your parents, hey, I am gonna be a musician full time. And instead of the typical response of, like, is that a smart thing to do, your parents are gonna be like, yeah, that's great. That sounds like a great career. So that's his vision. And, I think for what I'm working on, around like diversity and building a culture of like empathy and all of that. I mean, there is no one that is like, I think, better than Tim, to get behind that. Like, I think anybody who has ever heard him speak or have interacted with him just knows that people are like his number one priority. Culture is his number one priority. So we're jazzed. I'm really excited about where he's going to take us in the next couple of years. Brian has really done a phenomenal job of getting us to this point that is now allowing us to go to the next chapter. So we're excited.
And let's talk more about the candidates. So startup culture is known to be rather young in terms of it's seen as this young people, millennials. So Kevin wants to know, do you have any advice for people who are mid-career or a little bit senior looking at opportunities at Pandora or other tech companies?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that, it's a youth culture. It's at least what it seems like. If you look at the news or you talk to anybody about the Valley, it seems to be what at least the consensus is. But the truth is, currently I'm working on 4 senior level positions right now. They're all industry level positions. And I feel like that's all of us, right? I mean, we're looking for people that can compete at all kinds of different levels. So regardless of where you are in your career, fresh out of the box or have been in the industry for a while, anywhere in between, there's always a place for you at Pandora. It usually just depends on what we have available versus what skills you bring to the table. And those folks can reach out to me directly. I know I mentioned that earlier. Let me just put that back out there again. I'm happy to talk to anybody about any role.
So let's talk about locations. You mentioned some of the locations that you have available. Lisa wants to know, any plans to go to Atlanta? Atlanta's a big music town.
Any plans to go to Atlanta? Is that the question?
Yeah, that's the question from Lisa.
So we are in Atlanta, if folks don't know that already. So yeah, we have an office out there, and it is a smaller sales office. I think it has about 25, 30 people right now. And yes, of course, like Atlanta is, music mecca, and I think our music makers know that. Music makers team, they know that. So. There are a number of things out there that I believe that they're looking at in terms of festivals and conferences, but yeah, I mean we care about emerging music, and we know that a ton of emerging hip hop, R&B, rap is coming out of Atlanta. So it's absolutely a city that's on our radar. But we are there ready, and for folks who are interested in sales support, sales, we definitely encourage you to check out our career site, and my inclination is that office will continue to grow in the future.
So we have a question in from Chris. Chris wants to know, how is Pandora choosing to compete with the rise of more on-demand services such as Spotify and Apple Music?
Well, we're going to do it. Great question, and we're gonna go there. Yeah, I don't think this is secret or anything, but last year Pandora made some really aggressive moves in terms of what we want to be able to execute as a company. So we acquired 4 different entities. One is Next Big Sound, which is around music, data analytics, Ticketfly, which is a ticketing platform, and then of course parts of RDO, IP and talent, and then a radio station for I think mostly licensing reasons. But if you think about what is Pandora going to do with music analytics, ticketing, and RDO, which has been an on-demand service, right? You can kind of understand like our future roadmap and what we ambitiously will aim to do. So by the end of this year, we are going to be an on-demand service as well as still this effortless like lean back service, and we want to connect the dots in terms of like helping the artists and the fans to really be able to connect to each other by equipping them with the right analytics to understand, how their music is doing, and then furthermore enable this like live event experience by us going into the ticketing world. So we're doing it, and how else are we competing? I think we're going to compete by being like a really good company.
Good answer.
I believe that you can be a really great company and make really good business and still care about the people. So I think we're gonna, continue to demonstrate that.
We have a question in from Twitter, and I don't know how to. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know if you have any background or experience, but Cool Impulse on Twitter, he says that he's worked in marketing at record labels and in recording studios prior to the industry collapse. He wants to know how Pandora's work environment and culture differs from the record labels did in the 2000s. Early 2000s. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It depends, I guess, if you were working in the culture. Do you have any
I
insights
think
to that?
we will have to get back to you on that. Follow up with us, because I come from a much more traditionally like tech background. So this is actually my first foray into music/entertainment, and I'm learning a ton. The only thing that I really know is that music industry historically, or any entertainment companies historically, have not like paid their interns, and I know we pay our interns, and we don't believe in like free labor, but I don't think that's really answering the question that this person is looking for. So follow up with us. We will try to get you an answer around how Pandora is different from the music industry back in the 2000s.
Well, that was a good segue. Internships.
Yeah.
Are you guys looking for interns? And what type of interns?
Yeah. So if folks go to our career site today, and make sure you do it today, pandora.com, I think, /careers, there are a number of intern roles that we are still looking for, and we are, like, I kid you not, right in the midst of recruiting for our interns. So don't sit on it. If you are looking for an internship for the summer that is paid, that is going to allow you to really work on your own project and be able to present that, definitely check us out. What was I going to say? We are looking at rising seniors in undergrad, or if you are graduating but you are going back to grad school. So basically, as long as you're going back to school, as long as you have one more year left, or going to grad school, you're eligible to apply to our internships. So definitely check us out, and if you do apply, shoot me a note and let me know you did, so I can get it over to a recruiter. But same thing apply from what I said earlier, which is make sure your resume is on point. Make sure that there are no typos and grammars, and that the formatting is not whack. I mean, I've seen resumes where the margin's like 3 inches, and I'll be like, yo, dude, what is this? And then they'll be like, oh, I didn't notice. Bad answer.
So are the internships technical, both technical and non-technical?
Great question. They're all non-technical at this point. We start our technical internship recruiting really early. So we have already wrapped up all of our technical internships. We do have some, I think, MBA roles for analysts. So anybody who has that analytical kind of data experience, we have some of those roles, both MBA and undergrad, and pre-law, which I think is a little bit more specific. But yeah, at this point we are looking for people who are interested in understanding operations, sales, marketing, and so on.
And then so let's jump back to, I guess, Lisa, as the senior diversity manager. What changes in diversity would you like to see in 2 years? That's from Kevin.
Oh man, what changes would I like to see in 2 years? Well, I would like to see that companies are putting out, concrete goals on how they plan to move the needle. I think a lot of companies, well, some of them have come out saying that they're going to provide mandatory trainings for employees around unconscious bias. That's not enough. I think that is the same as us saying back in the 70s or the 80s that we're going to provide sensitivity training for all of our employees. Like that is nothing. So I would like to see all of the companies being much more, I think, bold and courageous in the way that they are setting goals around diversity. Unfortunately, it is still a question of boldness. I would like to see many, many more leaders, not just executives, but senior leaders, talking and emphasizing the importance of diversity for their companies. I think that the upper management of Silicon Valley is still, unfortunately, not very equipped to talk about issues relating to gender and race and sexual orientation and more. So I would like to see us upping the ante on overall competency around how it is that we're able to approach these subjects in a very thoughtful and respectable manner. And then, of course, just actual change. So I would like to see companies having more than just 1 to 2% African Americans and 4 to 5% Hispanic and Latinos. I would like to see that, the majority of the folks of color working at tech companies are not in, like the service areas, that they're not just working in the kitchen or material services or, whatever the blue collar jobs are. So lots of things I would like to see, but overall, just even a deeper empathetic understanding for people.
And this is another good question. Kevin's asking some good questions today. Kevin wants to know, what are some of the things that you've learned while working at Pandora or learned about yourself? This is both Marvin and you.
Yeah. Well, actually, sorry. Can I add one more thing to what I just said? Sorry, I'm a little. Yeah, sometimes I forget. I think with all of that, I think the changes that I'd like to see are also changes that need to be funneled over to the actual product and what kind of products we are creating for the world. So, I think the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to diversity work is so that we're developing real services for everybody and not just the top like 1% of the world. So I'm hoping that all of these diverse perspectives and underrepresented voices will ultimately be a part of like what is at the table around decision making when it comes to the design of your product, the release of your product, and what your product is actually going to do. So that's also what I'm hoping to see more of, that these different companies are going to reflect the rest of America in the way that they're working and not just in its people. Okay, Marvin, what have you learned about yourself?
Yeah, so I have an organization of 65,000 people, and then here in Pandora, just got.
One second, Marvin. I don't know if it's just me. I can't. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of feedback too. Let me see here.
Yeah.
Is it there?
I can't hear
Marvin,
any.
I think I can't hear you. Oh no, we lost him.
He'll probably join back. Well, Lisa, do you want to talk about what you've learned? I mean, I know you came from Facebook. So
yeah, what have I learned since being at Pandora? Gosh, that's a really great question. I think I have learned that work-life balance comes from, I think, first of all, yourself and your desire to put boundaries on your life. And, I think, yes, of course, different companies have different cultures. And some are going to be, you know, a culture where everybody works until 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. But it really starts with you, by saying, you know, what you will and will not do. So I think I learned that. I learned that whenever you are wondering about something, ask, you know, rather than keeping it to yourself. So if you're having questions around, I wonder if we can do things this way, or I wonder if this is possible, or I wonder if this executive will talk to me about, you know, why, ask them, you know, like, people don't know that you have questions until you put the questions to them. So, you know, always ask, because it's a 50-50, you know, chance that they'll either say yes or they'll say no. And that's a really high kind of probability, right? I have learned that, again, like, it is possible. I mean, this is more of a reassurance that it is possible to have a thriving business that still cares deeply about its communities, and that, you know, like, capitalism doesn't always have to be capitalism like the way that we think about it. You know, working for a company, I used to think that working for a company is like selling your soul. And I have learned that's not necessarily the case. Like, you can still work for a company that has all of these values for things that you care about as well. So that's really fulfilling. But yeah, I mean, it's been a great 2 years of learning around, like, collaboration. You know, people do want to work with you for the most part. Sometimes they just don't know how. So in similar vein, like, just ask, you know, look for tactical ways to help people understand, like, how it is that you want to work with them, and not just say, hey, we should really work together. Like, that sounds very ambiguous and doesn't at all tell me, you know, what it is that, like, what are the objectives that you want to accomplish? You know, why me as opposed to somebody else? And, you know, what's the end goal? Like, what, you know, paint the picture for me for, you know, what's your agenda? I think so often we kind of dance around at a very high level. And, you know, we kind of talk in circles of like, it'd be really great if we could partner. It's like, I don't know what that means.
That's actually a good point. That's something I'm learning myself this very week. I sent a lot of emails out, obviously, for the HBC to start up, asking for a lot of people to partner with me or to work with me. And then this week, or the last 2 weeks, I've been on the receiving end of, can you help me? Or how do you, and at the same time, it's like, okay, how do I, it's like, I don't know, what do you need help with? So I'm learning myself, like, when I ask for requests, to be very specific, because being on the receiving end of it, you definitely want to help, but it takes a lot of time and energy to craft or be creative in the ways of, like, okay, I don't know, what are you looking for? What do you need? You need to be specific about that. So that's something I'm learning myself this week. So we have about 14 minutes left, and I want to talk about, just in general, inside knowledge of working at a Pandora. And I know you came from Facebook, and Marvin came from Google, some of these big popular startup, or the word startup is so weird, but like, they're now like in a teenage years now. How do you actually get your foot in the door? Because this is what's happening. I'm hearing a lot from the community of, we see these jobs, we know that they're looking for more diverse candidates, and we go to the website, we apply, and then I don't hear anything. And that's a common recurrence I'm hearing. So what is your best advice for people who are looking to get their foot in the door? What do they do?
Yeah. So, and I'm going to talk about this in a really, really tactical way. It's not, you know, what I like believe in necessarily, but if we're going to talk about, all right, let's strategize, like, how do you get inside these doors, right? I think, just taking a step back, I think in general, our generation has been taught, you know, go after your dreams and don't take no for an answer, right? Like, if you really want to do, you know, X, if you really want to be, you know, a DJ, then you need to find that dream job. And I sort of take a little bit of a different stance, saying that, I think your career or what you love and what you want to do is never going to be like a straight line. And it's always going to be kind of a zigzagging way to get there. So for people who want to break into tech but has no prior tech experiences, like, it's hard, period. You are competing with people who have tech experience, they have the network. And if you don't have those things, like, it is going to be difficult. However, the majority of tech companies do have entry-level positions in areas of, user operations, sales operations, advertising operations, advertising support. For us, we have, our listener advocate team, which is essentially like our customer service team, and a bunch of other kind of pockets of entry-level jobs. Now, it might not be the job that you want, right? Because, if you want to break into tech, like, why wouldn't you want to go work on something really sexy, like a product management or, like a music analyst, right? But again, like, if you don't have those skills, your resume is just not going to be looked at. So my recommendation is finding out pockets of those entry-level positions, apply for those roles, and don't say that, you're just trying to get your foot in the door that way. Like, some people are actually really forthcoming about that, which I appreciate. But if you say to any recruiter, like, I don't really know why I want this job, I kind of just, I love the company and I'm willing to do whatever it takes for me to work there, that's not a compelling argument. Like, it all comes back to packaging and marketing yourself. If you are going to apply for, a customer service job, like, why do you want it? Like, have you had experience working with people, providing service to people? And I know the majority of us have. Like, we've all had service level jobs. Like, we worked in retail, we worked in restaurants, we had to like work our way through school, right? So actually come up with a compelling reason. And once you are in the door, network, and eventually you can network your way into the right team, and the team that you want to be in. I know so many people who have started out in like a user operations job or a customer service level job for a tech company, and then are now like running a whole product section. So definitely think about, I think, the long tail, right? Like, you are not just like here to try and get like the short wins. Like, it is really like, how do I have a longevity and a career in tech? And you cannot have that if you cannot even, get into a tech company. And I think once you get your first break into a startup, into a tech company, the rest will become so much easier. As recruiters, hear like that you were at a different startup before, that you have experience working with, technology companies and et cetera. So that's my very, very tactical advice. You've got to come in with skills that you already have rather than skills that you would like to learn. And you have to position yourself as a really strong candidate, just like how you would not go and run a race that you're not trained for. This is like the same thing, you got to come in based on what what you can speak to, like really precisely and in a really compelling way. And once you're in, then you can start worrying and stressing about what's next and what's the next chapter and am I happy, am I not, because like there's no point to think about all of those things, like if you cannot even get like to the race, right?
So, okay, so let's say a person finds they're looking at a customer support role, but they don't know anyone at the company, and they just apply through the website. What is and I know like companies like yourself or like some of the other firms, they get a lot of applications that come in through the website. How do you ensure that you at least get a call back or can get someone on the phone?
Yeah, totally. So I just heard about one person who eventually got the job that he wanted because he messaged on LinkedIn every single person who works on that team.
Wow.
Right. So be smart about your research. Like if you're looking for that role, like Marvin said, social media has made it so easy for us nowadays to know who is working on what team, what their public personas are. Like I have, a public website with my Twitter handle, with my Instagram, like all of that. And you know what people are. So there really isn't an excuse to not, reach out. And, again, like not saying that you should really like annoy the crap out of people and, continue just like hitting them up like 3-4 times a day. Like I think everything in moderation, right? So once you apply for the job, like, try to find different recruiters working at that company. I mean, like one thing to note is that at least at Pandora, and I think this happens at other companies too, all of us share resumes with each other. So if you message me and like, I just applied to this role, this is who I am, I'm really excited, these are the skill set that I bring to the table, this is why I love music. Even if I'm not the recruiter for that role, which I'm not, and I'm not the hiring manager for that role, I'm going to read you a message and say, wow, this is a really well-written email and this person sounds really good. Let me forward it to, our recruiter alias, or let me forward it to the precise recruiter who I know is working on that job. And I'll be like, hey, heads up, just got this inbound, not sure like if you've seen this person's resume, but they seem like they're great, and if every recruiter had like, 4 or 5 people like messaging them with something like that with your resume, the chances of you getting an email back or a call like is much higher than other people. And then of course, if this is possible, I know not everybody, live in the hub of like tech, but try to go to the different meetups. Like meetup.com will tell you, when there are meetups and events, like free events. I think tech companies do events all the time that are open to different demographics. And lots of companies now, especially with the push around diversity and increasing underrepresented perspectives, companies do like events all the time related to that. So find out of those events, do your research and try to network and talk to people. Like I said, like you never know, like if you don't ask, you don't get an answer. But if you ask, there's the 50% chance that you're going to hear back.
Awesome. I think that's really good advice. I think a lot of times people are a little bit too passive about their job search, and they are like, they apply on a website and then they sit home and hope and pray that they're going to hear something back. So I think you have to be strategic and aggressive with your job search. Apply, network, find people there, get those introductions, so they all make sense. So we have 4 minutes left, and I want to thank you for your time this morning. And I just want to leave the floor to you. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or mention, or what's the best way people are watching this as a recording? What's the best way for people to kind of reach out to you if they're interested in learning more about Pandora?
I think in general, and thank you, first of all, for having me and Marvin. Marvin said that his neighborhood is experiencing an outage, so he's not going to be able to get back.
Oh, wow.
But, thank you for having the two of us on today to talk more about Pandora. I think you sort of hit the nail like right on the head, which is that we are really passive when it comes to our job searches. And if you do it right, sometimes like looking for a job, and especially looking for a job that you really care about, feels like a full-time job. Like it does take time, it does take organization. And the people who are, approaching it in a more, I think, planned way, where you have a spreadsheet of like the roles that you are, trying to apply for, and what company, and what have you done for each of these roles. Like it can feel like a lot. And I think that's the thing, is that, it's human nature. Like we want the path of least resistance. We want to have the dream job without putting in the work. And I know for most of the people who are listening today, like that's probably not true. Like we've probably all worked really, really hard to get to where we are today. So, looking at your job search in the same way and be really strategic about it. The other thing is, write me on LinkedIn. And if there is a role on our site right now that you're excited about, get in touch with me. But don't just get in touch with me and say, and this is a real case. Like I've had people reach out to me and just say, here's my resume. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, you know, every email that you send is the first impression that you're making. And so remember that, like, what is your brand out there? You know, don't send me an email and it's just like, hey, cool, like heard you talk and, you know, you said to get in touch with you. So here you go. Like, I know nothing about you, right? Like, you know, it's just like going on a date. You never just like go to a person and be like, yeah, so like we should go out. So why would you do that during a job search? You know, every professional contact should be thought about in a meaningful way. And you should really be thinking about how you kind of groom those contacts so that there is longevity there. You know, I might not be able to do much for you at this moment with a specific job, but you never know. Like, you know, as I continue to work in the tech industry, one day I might work for a company that you really want to work for, right? So really think about the long-term game there as well. But I do want to say thank you to everybody who is, you know, listening and, you know, asking all of the questions. Getting to know the companies better is always valuable. So thank you for that, and thank you to, you know, folks who are actively thinking about how they can make the tech industry better. So it's going to take all of us to continue asking the questions and pushing the envelope in order for us to not have to continue, I think, working and living in such homogenous, you know, industries.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I want to thank you and Marvin for taking time this morning. And it is a Friday, so I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday and have good plans for the weekend. Maybe I think it's supposed to be maybe some good weather this weekend in the Bay. So have a good weekend. Have a good weekend, and thank you again for your time. And thank you everyone who tuned in this morning. And you should have all the social media shouts. And Lisa said, if you have any further questions, definitely link into her.
Yeah, or, you know, let's continue the conversation over at Twitter. So I am at RRR Lisa RRR.
All right. Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. Bye.